All right, I think let's start with this session. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome once again to Happy Hours of Coaching session. Today's topic is on business agility, a factory approach, and I'm going to talk about a business agility from a different perspective. I'm sure all of you have heard about business agility. All of you have heard about what is enterprise agility all about, but I'm going to talk it from a different lens or from a different perspective and what it takes for an organization to bring in a culture of business agility. So that is what I'll be talking in today's session. Welcome to those of you who have joined on Zoom. Welcome to also people who have joined on LinkedIn Live. And once again, happy to have be within with you. I mean, happy to be in the midst of all of you. So thanks very much. And yeah, so we will have this session for around 30 minutes of my talking, followed by a Q&A. I mean, the regular format, what we usually follow. So I'll open up the floor for Q&A after 30 minutes. Okay. And those of you who are on LinkedIn Live, you can always type in your questions. You can always ask your questions. And I'll be more than happy to answer those questions as we move along. All right. So let us understand what business agility is all about in the context. As I said, I mean, it's a different lens which I have tried to put around. Okay. So let us see what's happening around us, right? I mean, the world around us, what's happening, how is technology impacting the things around us, right? I mean, we all know that we live in a digital era, we live in a digital transformation world, right? So how is this digital transformation initiative impacting all of us, right? And you'll be surprised to know that digital transformation is something which has actually inundated across all the spheres of our life, right from the time we wake up in the morning till the time we sleep in the evening, and whatever transactions we do, whatever people or businesses or enterprises we interact with, digital transformation is something which is there, right? I mean, which is there in each one of our lives, what is there. So there's something very interesting which I saw recently, and I come from a city of Pune, and I think those of you who are from Pune know what Pune is famous for, right? I mean, the food item which is very famous in Pune, right? I'm sure many of you, even though you are not staying in Pune, you would be knowing about it. So there's a very famous sweet shop in Pune called Chitale. Okay. And this was in news recently. Okay. And this was not in news recently for any new mithai or any new savory which they had actually brought about. This was in news recently for something they did on the digital transformation. And yeah, as I said, it's a very famous sweet shop. These are some of the very popular products of this sweet shop, what is there. But it was in news, as I said, recently, not for any of the new sweet launches they have launched or any new, I would say, mithai or a savory which they have launched. But this was in news because of this reason. Okay, so you never know. I mean, you might require a DevOps engineer they might need a DevOps engineer. You never know, right? I mean, if you look at it, this is what it says, right? I mean, it partners with VMware to develop cloud-based infrastructure, and they are the users of Kubernetes cluster, right? I mean, that's the kind of world we are living in, right? I mean, gone are the days when if I've done, I mean, I would be working only in an IT company, right? I mean, it could very well be that I'm a part of this organization which is actually into DevOps, which is already imbibing technical agile practices, which is already knowing the CI/CD pipeline much better than what we have been used to, right? So this is something, isn't it something very, very interesting? Isn't it something which is very, very motivating, right? I mean, an organization which is not traditionally into a software world is actually imbibing the cloud. It's actually imbibing the DevOps tools, the DevOps landscape into it, right? So this is something very, very interesting. This is something which very much fascinated me, sorry, right? I'll give you another interesting example. Okay, let us see this. What is this, by the way? Can anyone recognize this picture which is going to come up on the screen? Anyone can recognize this picture? I mean, people from India, obviously. They should be knowing about this picture. What exactly is this picture telling? Who are these people? Any guesses? I mean, who are these people? I mean, just try to think over it. And I'll also see on LinkedIn Live if anyone is responding. I'm in India would be knowing about this. These are ticket checkers. Exactly. I mean, these are the people who check tickets in train. So whether a passenger is having a valid train ticket or not, are these people going to do the checking? Now, something interesting happened in this world also. Okay. So what has happened is Indian Railways has actually replaced, they have completely eliminated paper-based reservation charts. I think we all have grown up traveling in trains. We still might be traveling in some of the trains, right? And you will find something interesting has happened there to vis-a-vis digital transformation. No longer a TC will be having a paper-based reservation chart and a pen with him or her. Okay, they have been given these tabbed devices, what you can see in their hand, and the entire reservation data of that particular train is feeded into that. Okay, so this was another interesting news which had come out. Indian Railways replaces reservation charts with tabs in 280 plus trains. And we are not talking about only the premium trains here. We are not talking about the Vande Bharats and the Rajdanis or the Durontos of the world. Even in a some normal train, you will find this tab-like device which the TC has, and this person will do it. Entire thing can be done with a tab, right? I mean, you don't need to carry that big bag which TCs are known for. Normally, when you look at a ticket checker in Indian Railways, they will have a big bag with them, right? With lot of papers, lot of books, receipt books, etc. They have completely transformed this experience. They're saving a lot on paper. They're making the process more transparent. They're making the process more user friendly. And that's what's happening around us, right? I mean, that is something interesting, what I thought that I'll share, right? I mean, when I'm talking about business agility, let's not just talk about the models and the frameworks around it. Let's talk about the real-time experiences, what we all are seeing or what we all are observing around us, right? And I've just taken two very specific examples from an Indian context, right? From a very, very specific, which is, and we always had these challenges, right? Well, when the train is running, can we have a proper connectivity and all? But I think we have an infrastructure which could, which would actually support this happening, right? So that's another example. That's another digital transformation initiative, which I thought I will share with you. Something interesting, another interesting from an automobile company, this time not from India, but BMW rolls out its largest over OTA software upgrade. This is a traditional automobile company. It has not, I mean, IT is just an enabler here, but see how IT as an enabler has actually encompassed the business. So it's no longer IT being an enabler. IT has actually enveloped your business circle, right? So let us say that this is your entire business circle, what you are, and I am drawing it here. Okay, probably 20 years back, IT was somewhere here, just a small knot into it, right? Today, what has happened is, and maybe I'll draw it in a different color, probably IT was something like this. Okay, maybe 20 years back. But today, what has happened is IT has actually, or digital transformation has actually enveloped the entire business. Your entire business is enveloped by this IT transformation. There is no area of your business, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is production, whether it is operations, whether it is HR, finance, procurement, purchase, right from, I would say, from the point in time a raw material enters into the factory till the time it is sent from the factory to the distributors, to the warehouses, to the dealers. I think we have the entire landscape which is mapped by the digital transformation journey, right? So gone are the days when the material, when it goes out of my company warehouse, I cannot trace it. No, you can still trace it. You can actually trace it, which store is selling that material, what was the consumer buy. I mean, we are in a world of hyper personalization, as they say, and this is where this entire digital transformation journey is going along, right? And that's what I thought that I'll share a different perspective rather than directly jumping into the models of business agility. Something more, there are more stories to come. Okay, this is not the end of the story. One of the very great success stories of e-governance in India, Passport Seva Kendra. I mean, I'm sure each one of us in India has experienced this. 20 years back, 15 years back, when you used to go to procure a passport, or when you used to go to apply for a passport, it was a nightmarish experience. I'm sure each one of us has gone through it. Today, if you go through it, the process is much more streamlined. I'm not saying that it is the best process in the world, but it is definitely much better than what it was 10 years back, right? And many times you will see that the queue is properly streamlined. There's a proper flow across those sections. and within no time you're out of the Passport Seva Kendra with alerts and messages coming up at periodic intervals. Now that's the world we are living. That is what is happening around us from a business transformation perspective, from a digital transformation perspective. So business agility is not something which is going to happen in future. What I'm trying to tell, it has already started happening, and many of us might have missed that bus. Many organizations might have actually forgotten to ride that bus, and what they will now find is to challenging, they will find it a lot of challenging to survive in this VUCA or a Bani world, as we call it, right? So it's not something which will happen maybe tomorrow. It has already happened yesterday. So if you have woken up today, you have already missed the bus. Now there are many companies who are trying to catch this bus, and obviously they're learning from the mistakes. They are iterating around it, and then they're trying to board this bus again. All right, moving ahead. Something interesting happening after COVID, right? I mean, we were all thinking that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. No, we are not in the fourth industrial revolution. We are in the fifth industrial revolution, which talks about mass customization and mass personalization. So what is mass customization and mass personalization? So there's something very interesting. I mean, you might produce a product, but that product will have different shades for different people. So India is a country of 1.4 billion people. We now are almost, I think, 1.4 billion people. Believe me, one of the challenges which organizations are going to have is each of our 1.4 billion people might have different preferences, different taste for the same product. So hyper personalization is something which has set in. Hyper personalization is here to stay. The other day I was in this kiosk of Shopper Stop in an airport, and there's a interesting thing what they have done. They have kept a kiosk outside, and you can actually see that, okay, how a particular shirt will fit on you, whether it will look good, whether it will not look good. It'll give you those intelligence trends. The same thing happens on Lenskart. If you go to Lenskart and if you want to buy a spectacle, it'll tell you which frame will suit you, which frame will not suit you, right? I mean, that's the world of hyper personalization, what we call it, right? So recently I shifted to a new house, and believe me, there are 34 flats in this building where I stay. Each of the 34 flat, you'll find there's a difference. You enter, there's a difference. Okay, they're of the same configuration from a bedroom perspective, but each of the flat is unique. Even the entrances have changed. Okay, some of the flats entrances have changed within the ambit of structural safety. Of course, I'm not saying that someone has done any structural damage, but within the ambit of that, you will see there's a hyper personalization which has happened in the place where I stay, right? So that's the world we are in. Industry 5.0, it's officially there. It's no longer Industry 4.0. Industry 1.0 obviously is the advent of the steam engine. Then came the conveyor belts, or basically car manufacturing. Then came the Industry 3.0 60s, where it was the more related to computers, automation, and robots. And fourth one was before COVID, right? Data analytics, connectivity, etc. We are officially now in the fifth industrial revolution, and organizations or enterprises which don't understand this, they will be out of business soon, right? I mean, there's to be a lot of investment. And when I say investment, it's not just money power. Okay, money is one part of the investment. And as we'll see ahead, there are different kinds of investment which an organization has to make if it has to survive and thrive in this world of Industry 5.0. All right, moving ahead, let's further move ahead and let us further try to see what essentially is this. So what I have tried to summarize here is a kind of approach or a kind of a model which we'll try to understand further, which I call it as a STICK model, right? And STICK stands for scaling, transformation, innovation, collaboration, and knowledge. So that's the framework, or that's the knowledge which I have tried to say that, okay, these are the 5 critical components for an organization to move into that digital transformation world, if they have not already moved. And in case organizations are already into the digital transformation world, obviously they will have to keep on revisiting this. It's not that, okay, you do these 5 things and you are there. Okay, it has to be a journey. It's a continuous improvement journey which you will have to go through. Okay, so let us try to demystify this. Let us try to decouple this one by one. What essentially is STICK all about? How do we enable this STICK approach of what is there? and let us try to understand this model in detail. Okay, something interesting again from a business world, the Amul story, right? I don't know how many of you have seen their factory, how many of you have seen how these dairy products are created. And if you look at it, okay, and I think people here know what is Agile. Okay, so I'm assuming here, I think all of us talk about an Agile model, right? I mean, we talk about various Agile frameworks or model. If you ask me, this is a scaling model, what it should be. Okay, and you can clearly see some of the tiers there. I mean, the kind of scale this organization is operating at, right? They have such automation and controls in their system that even if one problem is there in any of the dairy parameters, the entire batch gets stopped immediately and it gets rolled off, right? So even before any of these milk products are crafted, whether it is cheese, whether it is paneer, whether it is any of the sweets or curd or let's say yogurt, they have a robust quality control, quality checks in place. They have they have mechanisms in place to make sure that the milk is of a consistent quality, starting right from the raw material, from the source where the final product is going to be built upon. Because if your source is bad, your final product is going to be bad, right? Scaling, right? I mean, they have scaled up the operations instead of doing all this manually. In fact, their entire factory is untouched by hand, right? Whether it is manufacturing gulab jamun, rasgulla, as I said, or curd, or utterly butterly delicious Amul butter, their entire factory line is automated without any human intervention, right? Or rather minimal human intervention. In fact, they have an automated laddu making machine. Okay, the traditional Indian spherical sweet what we have, right? They have a traditional laddu making machine which is untouched by hand, right? And that's what we call it as scaling. Can my organization scale up to that next level? Fine, I'm doing great when I'm maybe, let's say, a 10 crore organization or a 20 crore organization. But what about scaling? Can I really scale my organization upwards? That's what comes in as a part of the scaling approach. What is there? By the way, recently this organization completed 70 years. And I mean, the way it has grown by leaps and bounds, I think it's terrific what we can say. Okay, so something interesting, I think we all know this quote by Henry Ford. If I had asked the public or people what they wanted, they would have said they need a faster horse. That is what Henry Ford says, right? I mean, sometimes you have to take that risk. Sometimes you have to play that gamble and move ahead, right? So that's what the first glue of that stick model is. S for scaling, right? Are we ready to scale our business? Are we ready to scale our operations to the next level of transformation, to the next level of growth? Or many times I've seen organizations are afraid of growth. They don't want to gamble. They don't want to take risk because they are in that fixed mindset. They don't really want to move ahead. Is one of the challenges of what we see in the stick framework, what is there, right? And that's where I think scaling is one of the crucial aspect or a crucial element which we need to have. T is for transformation, and many times we make a mistake here because we do something which is more like a transition, but what is needed is a transformation. There's a difference between transition and transformation, like this one. The next example, what you're going to see, it's actually a transformation. 10 years back, I did have digital payment in India. Not that I did not have digital payment in India, right? But it was more like a transition from maybe from a checkbook to an ATM card. That is what I had, right? No one had very few shopkeepers actually would accept credit card because obviously there were a lot of hassles in that. That is more like a transition from a currency based buying to a digital way of buying, but that is transition. This is transformation, the kind of growth UPI has done, right? Today, we have 85% of transactions which are going through a UPI payment mode, right? I mean, you go to even the remotest part of this country, you will find even a small shopkeeper having a UPI QR code in front of him or her, right? And and they will prefer to have payment with that. So that is what we call it as a transformation. And again, I think a very important quote which comes to my mind is by this Oren Harari. He says that electric light did not come from the continuous improvement of candles, right? Yes, we did have credit cards in India. We did have ATM cards in India, but they had a kind of a limitation till what time they could be innovated. The real innovation came when you moved the needle from these cards to actually a digital transformation through the mobile phones, right? Where All I needed was a smart phone with a camera in it. Even the prices of that have dropped now, as we know, right? And just I had to scan this, and then it is linked to my bank account. The payment will get transferred from there, right? So if you would have continued to think about, and that is what many of the politicians mistook, right? They thought that, oh, how can a shopkeeper have a credit card? How can a small time vendor who's earning probably only 300 or 400 rupees a day have a credit card, right? But they mistook that because they thought that, okay, we'll continue, we'll continuously improve on candles. No, for electricity, you need a different mindset, right? You cannot continuously innovate using candles, right? It has a limitation. It has a limited shelf life to it. And that is where I like this quote: electric light does not come from the continuous improvement of candle, right? So that's T for transformation. Are we willing to take our business? Are we willing to think out of the box, or are we still within fixed mindset or within that fixed box? What is there? I think that's the second important element from a transformation perspective, what is needed. Okay, I is any guesses for I is basically innovation, right? Only those businesses survive and thrive which innovate. Rest of the businesses go out of the market soon. And a very interesting thing I saw in one of the railway stations in India. This is not just a water dispenser. There's something very interesting in this story. This water dispenser does not have a tap as a source, does not have a pipeline as a source. Okay, this water dispenser actually generates water from air. Okay, and that's a innovate. It actually traps the water vapors from air, and it converts it into, through a filtration process, into a potable water. And this you will find at many places in India. At the time of publishing this slide, obviously it was these are the places where I had seen it. So I just put in the places where I have seen it in Mumbai and in Secunderabad, one place where I have seen it. But this initiative is called Meghdoot, and it's a very innovative idea, right? I mean, India, as we all know, has got a perennial water shortage, right? There's always a challenge with this rainfall, sometimes not coming in its full stream. Sometimes there's a drought, sometimes there's a problem with rains, right? So that is what we call it as an innovative idea, right? Something very interesting, something very interesting, or an innovation of what is there. Okay, moving ahead, C for collaborate. Okay, and collaboration is what we say is that yes, again, there's a mistake which people make. They fail to differentiate between coordination and collaboration. I'm not talking about coordination. I think coordination everyone does at their workplace. Okay, there's no team in this world which does not coordinate. The problem is, do we collaborate? And when I say collaborate, it's not just within your team. It's with your external stakeholders, it's with your external entities. It could be beyond your project. And one example which came to my mind is something which we all exercise as citizens of India, right? Voting, right? We have votings in state elections, we have votings in general elections, right? And believe me, whatever political parties might say, this organization has been pretty much neutral. And look at the scale at which they are operating, right? Imagine you taking a project and trying to operate at this scale, right? There were 875 million eligible voters in the last general election. This data is from 2019 general election. There were 1 million polling stations across the country, some even at a remote place, some at an island, some at a mountainous peak, some in a drought-prone area. But 1 million polling stations, 10 million polling officials. Are these election commission employees? No. These are predominantly government employees, but they are motivated, right? They have been integrated into the system. So they are not working with election commission, but when election comes, they have been trained, they have been told how exactly this process has to be conducted. And that's the scale at which they operate, right? 454 political parties, 464 political parties. Imagine all political parties accusing the election commission of fairing one party or the other. We all hear that on a daily basis, right? And 8,000 candidates for 545 Lok Sabha seats. That's the scale at which the ratio is, right? And so what I'm trying to tell here is this is an organization which has actually done collaboration. It actually tells us what collaboration is. Whether you want to collaborate with political parties which have got differing views, you have to collaborate with election officials, you have to collaborate with government officials, with voters. There might be challenges in the machines. We all have heard about that, okay, this machine is not operating or it's not recording the ballot properly. But nevertheless, I think this is one organization which has stood the test of the time and which has ensured a free and a partial elections throughout the journey, right? So that's about collaboration. And do we do that? Do we really do that, which is there? So definitely a very interesting quote by Michael Jordan: talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championship. Indian election is no less than a championship, friends. I think we all know that, right? It's no less than any big championship. In fact, it is much bigger than any of the championships which happen, right? So that's what we call it as collaboration. That is what we call it as a collaborative journey, or a collaboration of what we call it. And last but not the least is K for knowledge. Now, I'm not talking about the knowledge what we can acquire from these sources. I mean, there are a lot of sources today for acquiring knowledge, and knowledge has been democratized, as they say, right? I mean, you go to any of these sites, you will find a course for 500 rupees. Okay, for 500 rupees, you can learn what you want, right? You don't even have to invest lakhs of rupees or millions of dollars into these courses. Very cheap courses are available, but this is not what I'm talking. This is definitely required. I'm not saying that this is not required. I mean, in fact, this is the democracy of knowledge, that we have been able to learn something at a very, very cheaper rate, right? But what I'm talking about here is more than learning. It is about applying. And that is where one of the challenges of what we see. Are we really applying the knowledge where we should be applying, right? Or are we just learning something for the sake of it and then we are forgetting it? Or we are not applying it in a right way? I think that's something which we need to understand, or that is something which we need to be sure when we are talking about knowledge management, right? So I think many of us already know there are two types of knowledge which are there. One is explicit knowledge, and what I was just talking about was on explicit knowledge, something which you can attend courses, something which you can do certification, something which you can read, okay, something which is available as a standard source of literature, presentation, etc. That is explicit knowledge, what is there, but that is just a tip of an iceberg. The real meat or the real piece is the tacit knowledge. It is what you apply. Is it so whatever I have learned, am I really applying it in the practical sense? So tacit knowledge is something which stays in my mind, right? And it goes away with me. Tomorrow, if I'm not there, this knowledge is also gone with me, right? It is about my personal experiences. It is my personal stories, personal triumphs and tribulations, right? The personal agonies and ecstasies I have gone through any transformation. That is my tacit knowledge, which is there, right? And many times we make a mistake. We think that the person is leaving the organization. Let us try to get the knowledge. But unfortunately, we only capture the explicit knowledge. We don't really capture the tacit knowledge. By the way, there are coaching techniques. There are probing techniques by which you can extract tacit knowledge. Okay. So tacit knowledge, as I said, it's something in my brain. But if you don't ask me the right questions, it will remain in my brain. So you as a knowledge seeker will have to provoke me. And you will have to extract that tacit knowledge from me. Okay. Otherwise, that knowledge will go away with me. So wherever I go, that knowledge is bound to go away with that with me. So that is very important. It's just the tip of an iceberg is the explicit knowledge, but the real knowledge lies beneath the surface, which we call it as a tacit knowledge of what we say. Yeah. So as you can see, a very famous quote by Anton Chekhov, knowledge is of no value unless you put it into practice. So are we really only learning about explicit knowledge, or are we really learning about the tacit knowledge, which is the time experience, which I want to capture into my projects, right? And again, as I say, right, I mean, the same situation might have a different solution. I have talked about this in one of my earlier webinars or earlier talks, where I said that the same problem you encounter, you try to apply the same solution, the results could be equally disastrous, what you get, right? So that's the K for knowledge, what is there. So that in a nutshell is a stick model, what we call it, right? And that is what we say is a stick model, which is S for scaling, T for transformation, I for innovation, C for collaborate, and K for knowledge. So where does this lead us to, right? So Organizations which actually want to leverage this, they have to make sure that it has to be more like a purpose driven rather than profit driven organization. I'll talk about this in the next slide. Not that profit is bad. In the next slide, you will see that profit is one of the key ingredients of a purpose driven organization, but only focusing on profit is going to be a problem. So that should be the vision of the organization. From an engagement perspective, it has to be employee centric over employee, I would say costing, right? Or our expense based organization. And from a customer perspective, customer centricity obviously is the key. Customer centricity over cost centricity. And last but not the least, product centricity over project centric, right? So you have to move yourself away as an organization, whichever organization it is, right? Now that, I mean, those of you are PMP would be knowing the standard definition of a project, right? I would say that that definition needs a little change in today's world. Today, every organization, you name it, is doing a project. Okay. And more than project, it is a product, what it is building. It might be a physical, tangible product like a smartphone, or it could be a product which is actually serving the customer, but we don't see that product. It's a hidden product, but it is serving the customer. So every organization today is a product centric organization. And just look around you, you might find that, yes, what I'm saying probably makes a little bit of a sense, right? It's no longer that, okay, that concept of a product and a service, that also is blurring slowly. Okay. I mean, earlier we used to say, right, I'm working in a product based organization or a service based organization. I think that distinction is also slowly blurring, and these two circles are slowly going to intersect. In fact, they've already intersected. They are going to be concentric circles is what, and I won't be surprised if these two circles actually merge into one, right? So that is what we need to understand, that product centric model over project centric model. Yeah, so that is where I would say stick as a framework will have to be leveraged. Stick as a tool will have to be leveraged to bring about these changes into our organization. Last but not the least, I like to talk about the factory approach. I think that was what the title of this webinar was. And let me try to depict this entire storyline in a factory. So I've tried to depict this in a factory model, what is there. And as you know, right, in a factory, we have the roof or the truss which is on the top, then we have the panels, then we have the shop floor area, then we have the foundation area, what is there. So I have tried to depict it. Now you might think that since it's a factory model, my CEO will be at the top. No, I would say that in this model, your people have to be at the top. Vision is something which will be at the top. Okay, vision, everything is guided by the vision, whether it is your key performance indicators, whether it's your goals, whether it's your OKRs. Everything essentially is guided by the vision which is there. So it's not a CEO which I put at the top. Okay, who drives the vision? You might say that it is the CEO and the CXOs and the C-suite people, but here I'm saying no. Here I'm challenging that stuff. Here I'm saying that people are going to drive the vision. Okay, it's not the leadership team. In fact, leadership team is much below. In this factory model, what I think is leadership has to be more like an enabler or a coach or a mentor to people, right? But it's the people who are going to be, so you have to bring the people into the vision. You have to align the people with the vision. And that's where intrinsic motivation plays a very, very crucial role. More than extrinsic motivation, as we know, right? Intrinsic motivation is mainly related with non-financial benefits of what we have. So this is where intrinsic motivation is something which plays a very, very crucial role. And leadership is actually at the bottom, if you look at it. And leadership has to do CI/CD. Now, this is not the DevOps CI/CD which I'm talking about. It is about continuous improvement and continuous development of people. That is what I mean. Leadership has to play a role of coaching and mentoring. Leadership has to provide that psychological safety to my teams, to the people who are there. And leadership has to work towards diversity and inclusion, right? I think that's one of the key measures: diversity, equity, and inclusion, along with empathy. So that's where leadership plays a crucial role. What you see on the left-hand side are the key resources. I don't like to use the word resources, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm using it. Like, you need policies, you need tools, you need collaboration, you need communication. So those are some of the important, I would say, enablers or tools which are there. as a part of it. Now, what is in the middle? Now, the real piece is in the middle, which is where shop floor, where actually the production is happening. Just like in a factory, it is a shop floor which matters, right? Finally, the cars roll out of the shop floor, right? We say. So what is exactly in the middle, or what is that middle piece which has got those critical levers and enablers into it? So the first thing, and yes, I'm open for challenge, is profit. Every organization, believe me, exists for a profit. Okay. And however we might deny it, whether it's a political party, whether it's a charity based organization, everyone needs money, right? Otherwise, they won't be able to go to that purpose driven journey, right? Yes, we need a purpose driven journey, but profit or money. And again, I'm not saying that money which is grabbed by the owner, that's where the problem occurs. So let's say I'm running an enterprise. Whatever profit I'm getting, I run away with that, or I use it only for my purpose. That's a bigger problem. But if you're investing or plowing back the profit back into the enterprise, back into the society, then definitely profit is a yes, I would say, right? So that is the answer to that. Why profit? I think many people ask me this question when I present this slide. Why have you said profit is important? Because as I said, why it is important is it's important in a case where you're plowing back that profit back into that industry, back to people, back to the society as a whole, right? So there are many organizations who plow a great amount of their profit back into their back into the society as such, right? So that is why profit I'm saying. And obviously you have to take care of your employees, you have to pay their salaries, you have to pay their benefits, etc. So whatever comes out after that, if you plow it back, definitely there's nothing wrong in working for a profit. As I said, every organization in this world needs profit as a backing, or money as a backing, to sustain, not just survive, but to sustain in the longer run. So that is a bare minimum thing. And again, leaving the greed element aside, profit is not something which is to be scared of. So what is the plus thing to this? The plus thing to this is the mindset. And that is where I said, right? I mean, if my mindset is wrong, then obviously profit will be used in a negative manner. But if my mindset is correct, if I'm communicating well with my employees, if I'm giving the right messaging to the society, and if I'm giving back the profit back to it, and or investing in research and development to bring about better products, definitely this is what is the second critical lever or second critical element which is there. So profit plus right mindset, that would be the correct equation to go for, I would say. And this would lead us to a purpose-driven organization. So this plus this equals to a purpose-driven organization, which will give the larger benefits to people, larger benefits to the society, larger benefits to stakeholders, and solving problems to sustainability, right? We have to also be sure about the sustainability angle. We can't just produce something and be greedy that, okay, my next generation will see something about it. They won't, if you give them the world in that way, they will give it back to you. Okay. They will throw back to you in a same currency, right? So whatever currency you give them the world, the same currency you will receive it back. Okay. And believe me, you'll receive it in the same life. Okay. You don't need another life for this. Okay. And that is what makes it an outcome driven or a purpose driven organization, where it is a people centric, where it is a mindset centric, and where it is a purpose centric organization, what is there. So some things what will come out of it, or some additional things which will help you achieve this, is coordination, lean mindset, growth oriented mindset, overall leading to the business leadership, right? So we started with I would say business agility, but I would say business agility is one of the important cogwheels in you becoming a business leader, or taking your enterprise towards a business leader, right? I mean, all the elements related to emotional intelligence, servant leadership are imbibed in this factory model, what you see. Okay, so with that, I end my talk here, or rather, I should say, I pause my talk here and open the floor for any questions. But before that, feel free to connect with me. I have a YouTube channel. I'd be more than happy if you're connected on the YouTube channel by subscribing to it. There are many such videos like this, almost 150 plus videos like this, which will help you to grow in your journey. And the good part is it is free. There is no subscription for it. Do connect with me on LinkedIn if we are not already connected. And yeah, happy to talk, happy to discuss. Just wanted to open up the floor for questions. So in case anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me, feel free to unmute yourself. and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. So yeah, any questions anyone has, kindly unmute. And those of you who are on LinkedIn Live, kindly post your question there. I will revert back to you, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn later on. Yeah, anyone, any questions on this, on the last half an hour, what you have invested with me?
Yeah, hi Ashutosh. Good evening, this is Nitin here.
Yeah, hi Nitin. Yeah, hello.
Yeah, so first of all, many thanks for the wonderful session, and it was very much enlightening. And you very rightly put the focus on Industry Revolution 5.0. Okay, that is we need to focus on mass customization, so which is there at the core of it. And when we talk about mass customization and factory model is something that comes into picture as part of a scale. So here we talk about a very, very bird's eye on a factory model, but when we look at the reality on ground, okay, do you have any reference where we can learn this in depth? Because this is definitely an eye opening, and we have to go for it. Okay, but is there any further reference that we can get insight into it to understand more? And so once again, okay, the way you rightly highlighted on 2 points, okay, how can we learn and how can we apply it? Okay, so that has to be transformed into
Correct,
a
correct,
tacit knowledge. Okay,
correct,
so
correct. It has to
any
be applied
guidance
into.
from your side would be of great help.
See, there are a lot of organizations in the world which are doing this, though they don't want to. See, this is something my depiction. Okay, this factory model is something which I thought that it will get depicted here, but not that organizations are not doing it, right? I mean, there are many organizations in the world which are following this. And I think many of these organizations are in India only, right? But I don't know if they've published any case study on it, or if they've published any key learning document. I'll have to really find it out. I'll have to really check. Which organizations are it? There's one reference which I can definitely talk about. There's a book called Reinventing Organization. That does talk about some of these organizations, and where they talk about the color coding, right? I mean, they talk about a red color organization, which is more like I would say kind of a dangerous organization to be, because it's a more like a command and control or power flowing from the top, to basically a teal based organization which is there. So there are organizations, not that there are not organizations which have already not imbibed this. Maybe I'll have to dig further into find out if there's any referenceable case study or anything which is available, which will throw more insights into this. See, whatever information I have got for this presentation, it's from the public domain only. So whatever examples I gave, right? I mean, they're all newspaper cuttings and press releases which have come out. But I'll have to really find out if there is any detailed case where this, probably it could be that this equation might be a different equation when it gets operated at that particular enterprise level. They might not have profit as a base, right? They might have something else as a base, what is there. So I'll have to really see which is a referenceable case study, but at least I'm not aware of it. But anyone in the audience aware about it or already knowledgeable on this, feel free to share it with all of us here.
Actually, especially when it comes to IT, I'm myself trying to implement, but failed, to be frank. I'm just
Okay.
looking for any case references where I can get
Okay.
insights, where I can learn more about, okay, how can we, okay, make this work in IT,
So
especially as
definitely,
part
if
of
you
a
want to,
digital transformation. Yeah.
correct. So definitely, if you have to implement this, obviously the mandate has to come from leadership. They have to create a transformation champion. I mean, that's an investment. I was talking about investment earlier, right? That's the investment they will have to make it into this entire transformation piece, right? It's an investment. Again, it's an investment which they will have to make into this model, right? And again, contextualize it. Again, this is not a it's not a lift and shift model that you can directly pull it from here and go into a transformation. Definitely a lot of learnings, definitely a lot of customization needs to be done for it.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, but what is that idea? Okay, I can just go inside, learn, and put on the table. Okay, as part of a small, okay, soft approach. That is, explore this soft approach and check whether it's work or doesn't work. That is build, measure, learn kind of approach. Pivot or preserve.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, that is something which I like. Sorry. Sorry, were you saying something?
No, I'm just listening.
No. What I was saying was that is something, I mean, the detailed literature of it or how it has to be done. Again, what I feel is, again, it's contextual. It is something which has to be worked about, but as such, there is no blueprint, I think, which is available for this. Just like, I mean, for any agile framework, we have a standard blueprint which is available, right? I don't think that kind of a blueprint is available. In any case, let me find it out if that's there or if it is available, something like that.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Ashutosh.
Yeah. Thanks, Nitin. Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? You can just unmute yourself and you can ask a question. Any thoughts or anything you'd like to add? If there are no questions, feel free to also add it here. So as I said, right, I mean, attack it. What you learned just now is just explicit knowledge, okay, in last 40 minutes. Tacit knowledge is further you'll have to explore, right? It's something which you'll have to explore, something which you'll have to do probing questions, something which has to be more like a curious person. That is how you'll have to extract the tacit knowledge out of it. Okay, let me see if there are any questions on LinkedIn Live meanwhile. And if any of you has more questions, feel free to pause and ask here, or unmute yourself and ask here. As I see on LinkedIn Live, if there are any questions around it. Okay, I don't see any questions. Maybe the questions will come a little late on LinkedIn Live. I think that's also one of the challenge, that the questions appear a little late on the feed. So if there are any questions, feel free to connect with me, and yeah, I'll be more than happy to answer those questions as we go on. So any one last chance, any questions in the Zoom meeting anyone has? Okay.
So Ashutosh, Reinventing Organization is one book, by chance author? Any idea? Otherwise, I'll find
Yes.
from
Yes,
Amazon.
Frederick Lale. Yeah, Frederick Lale is the author for that. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can quickly give you that a link for it.
No worries.
Yeah,
I can get it from Amazon.
you found it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. If you found it, that's good. Okay, so if there are no questions, I think then we are good to close the session for the day. So thanks once again for joining this session. Have a great Saturday evening. And I hope this investment was worth its time. So thank you very much and have a great evening ahead. Thanks a lot and see you next week. Yeah, bye. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.